We have a massive update on the Toronto Raptors. The Shams The Athletic has come out and revealed 3 Raptors that are garnering serious interest on the trade market ahead of this year's deadline. And with Masai Ujiri coming out and saying that more moves are likely to happen, with the roster construction being very lopsided, being very much swayed towards the guard position, it only makes sense for more moves to sort of go down, some of our vets to potentially get dealt. So we're going to break down all of the latest reports in this video. But before we dive into that, folks, again, over 57% of our viewers are not subscribed to the channel, so it would mean the world to me if you guys could hit that subscribe button as we continue to deliver all of the latest Toronto Raptors news. But let's dive into what's actually going on, because the Raptors last night had an unfortunate loss to the Chicago Bulls. Close game, Scotty balled out. The team had some positives, but also had some lows in terms of a couple of guys as well that might potentially get dealt from the Shams report. But clearly, we are lacking sort of that defensive presence. Vucevic did a really good job, even though Jonte Porter, I thought, probably should have got a lot more minutes in last night's game, because he looks like a very promising young piece for this Raptors team. We need more of a defensive-oriented center. So with Jakob Poeltl out, we are very thin on that front line, and Christian Koloko obviously getting waived. So what's going to happen? Well, Shams basically discussed this in a recent sort of run it back episode, in this one here, and he talked about how 3 guys, particularly Dennis Schroder, Trent Jr., as well as Bruce Brown, are all garnering serious interest out there in the trade market, and he wouldn't be shocked if Masai Ujiri ends up dealing some of these players, to sort of complete this sort of retooling, this readjustment to this Toronto Raptors team. Now, we heard a lot of things about Bruce Brown, and Bruce Brown was frankly looked really good for this Raptors team last night in his debut game after knowing none of the plays. He was just going out there playing off of feel. Bruce Brown is a really nice sort of player. Again, contract situations are a little bit weird when we dive in a lot in terms of the contracts for this Raptors roster, but Bruce Brown right now is currently our second highest paid player at $22 million per year, has a team option for next season at 23, so, he's a guy that, again, will he pick up that team option? Will he leave in free agency? Does he fit long term? He's 27 years old at this point. I mean, he's going to be a cool piece. He fits in anywhere really he's going to be traded to, but probably is a guy that's more valuable to a contending team rather than to the Toronto Raptors to develop as, a cornerstone prospect. So again, we've made a couple videos already on Bruce Brown. I'm not going to lean into him too heavily in this video, but Trent Jr. and Dennis Schroder are 2 names getting thrown out there is fairly interesting because, again, Trent Jr. is a guy that I personally sort of look at as, he has his highs, he has his lows, but looking at the contract situations, again, Trent Jr. is an unrestricted free agent. We don't know how much money he's going to make out there on the open market, but is a piece that, in terms of stats this season, averaging 12 points per game, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Surprisingly, it's significantly down from last year, but the number that is potentially going to allow the Toronto Raptors to get some serious value back for Gary is 41% from the 3-point line. Only 65% from free throw, which is kind of crazy, but shooting 41% from behind the 3. Again, very inconsistent kind of numbers from Gary. His defense has also kind of fallen off a little bit this year. And with that all combined with sort of the looming free agency, and Masai Ujiri discussed how free agency situations were the main reason this deal ended up happening with Pascal as well as OG Anunoby. The uncertainty of having guys enter unrestricted free agency. So, I mean, it makes sense to get value back for Trent Jr. It makes sense to sort of milk whatever you can, from Gary before he potentially leaves for nothing in the offseason. So he's a guy I wouldn't be shocked. And the Lakers have had interest in Gary over the past couple seasons. He'd be a guy I wouldn't be surprised to sort of be a target for them because they're looking for more 3-point shooting and guys are capable on the defensive end, even though Gary has shown that in the past, but just hasn't really been doing it this season. I mean, maybe we could get a guy like Jalen Hood-Schifino, maybe some seconds from the LA Lakers. I don't think we're getting a first given the fact Trent Jr. is an unrestricted free agent, but I do think we could get some value back from Gary. But the player that I think could garner the most sort of trade interest outside of Bruce Brown, and again, there's other teams, interested in Bruce Brown as well. Again, not diving too much into him, but this report came out from Mark Stein regarding Bruce Brown saying there's a strong belief that already bubbling league-wide that the Toronto Raptors will move on from newly acquired Bruce Brown before the buzzer sounds. Toronto can't aggregate Bruce Brown's contract with any other players in a follow-up trade, but Brown's contract, which pays out $22 million this season before a $23 million option next year, is extremely trade-friendly. So the Knicks, with Evan Fournier's contract, which is equally trade-friendly as well as draft compensation, could certainly have interest, although Brown does not exactly fit the description as a guard with the New York Knicks, that they're looking to replace the scoring that they lost in RJ Barrett as well as Emmanuel Quickly in the OG Anunoby deal. So Brown is still the guy that has the most rumors, the most reports going on about him, and league circles expect him to be traded, even though he looked really good for the Toronto Raptors in one game. But I think what people are overlooking is he's going to be very expensive for a guy that's more of a role player. But again, I wouldn't be hurt, I wouldn't be sad if Bruce Brown is, on this team long term, if we kind of keep him around. He's only 27 years old, but is a player that, again, looking at the contract, the Raptors want flexibility, is the word that was most used in Masai Ujiri's press conference. And, letting go of Bruce Brown, especially where Emmanuel Quickly is going to be getting paid a bag this offseason. I mean, letting go of Bruce Brown, letting go of Gary Trent Jr., it's going to open us up a lot of cap space for the future, especially if we make a couple more trades here or there. So, I mean, that's the Bruce Brown scenario, everything going on there. But as they sort of jumped into and then tangent off, Dennis Schroder is the player that I think the Raptors could really net some assets back, because we just picked up Kira Lewis Jr., who, again, I'm not predicting him to be an elite sort of player just yet. We haven't seen him play. He couldn't crack the rotation with the Pelicans, obviously with Dyson Daniels, Alvarado, as well as CJ McCollum there in the backcourt. So not blaming him specifically, but, I don't think he was a nothing thrown in that trade. We had to waive Christian Koloko in order to sort of pick up Kira Lewis Jr., and Koloko's a piece that had some potential. Again, Shams reported the actual reasoning for his respiratory issues. I don't want to further, because I think that's supposed to be private. So, but health issues kept Christian Koloko from being on this Raptors team. But I think we brought in Kira Lewis Jr. to actually see what he has. He's an extremely fast PG. He's young. He has a lot of potential. Was a first round pick. Maybe we could give him an opportunity with this Raptors squad to see what's really going on with him. So Schroder, who again fits that more Pascal Siakam OG timeline, could net the Toronto Raptors some value as well. He's a player option this offseason, and he's been putting up some pretty ridiculous stats for the Toronto Raptors this year. 14 points, 3 rebounds, close to 7 assists. He's shooting 36% from the three-point line, efficient free throw shooter. Again, just a piece that is really good at basketball. The Raptors are moving in the direction which I hypothesized once this initial trade went down. I said Masai Ujiri might be tanking this year by going the direction of not throwing out a center out there in the lineup. He knew how effective that was in tanking, during the 2020-2021 season, during that Tampa year when we just didn't have a big. I mean, it was an effective approach for losing games, even if we did have talent on the roster. So he might try to run it back, get our draft pick back. So dealing away some of the players, because this Raptors team will look scary on given nights. We have enough talent to win some games, but I think if we sort of have a lopsided roster, get rid of some of our vets, we could make it pretty easy to make a shoot to the bottom, here now at this point. So I think I wouldn't be shocked if Dennis Schroder ends up getting dealt, and as Shams sort of reported, he's a guy that's gaining interest out there on the market. So there are teams that are looking for ball handlers. Again, the Lakers are a team I keep bringing up because they had him previously last season. D'Lo stuff isn't not working out. He's been playing better as of late, but could be an interesting fit. I mean, the Miami Heat are a team that could also be potentially interested. There's a lot of squads that are looking for upgrades at that point guard position. So Schroder, even if he doesn't come in as a starter for those teams, he's on a very team-friendly contract for the next 2 years. I'm not sure if he's going to pick up that contract, so he might end up being a free agent in the offseason. But Schroeder's a guy that I think the Raptors could potentially get a first back for, like a late first, or, from a bad team, we're not getting a first back, but from a team like the Miami Heat, definitely possible. Definitely something that I wouldn't be surprised, desperate enough to sort of increase that point guard production. I mean, another first in this year's draft, accumulating assets, trying to build for that future, maybe some young pieces, prospect here or there. You combine Schroder, maybe a Boucher as well, take back a bad contract. These are all players with Masai Ujiri has that can build up more flexibility for the future, more sort of assets in order to build and maximize their potential for getting that first round pick for the end of this year. Again, I'm not sold on fully tanking, but I'm very sold on either balancing out this roster to get more big men to make sure we have a position to win, right? So we're not getting cooked by the Vucevic's, the Sabonis's of the world. So I am of that approach, or full out tanking and full out just nuking ourselves to the bottom to hope we can pray we get our first round pick for this season. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. You guys are the best to make it this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I'm signing out. Cheers.